One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. So I have a confession to make. And you're probably going to laugh at me whenever I tell you this. I can't even begin to say it without laughing. But I'm really boring. Okay, I'm just going to throw it out there. I am someone that likes to have a plan, and I kind of threw away my ability to be spontaneous and just do things on a whim several years ago, probably before I had kids. I think of who I was before I had kids. We're not even going to go down that rabbit hole, because I was a party animal and I just did things on my own, and I'm just going to do all the things. But ever since I became a parent, I like to be predictable. I like to know what's coming. And I say all of this, this is the preface to me changing things up today, because today's episode is very different than most of my other episodes. And there's a very specific reason why, because we are going to talk about podcast movement, because it's coming up and I want to share with you all of my thoughts and everything that's going on. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? So one thing that I really, really enjoy is my daily podcast. If you didn't know, I have a daily podcast too. It's called The Putty Report, and it is a podcast where I put out episodes every Monday through Friday, and they're 5 minutes or less. And I realized the other day, I was like, man, I am really enjoying the content that I'm creating over there. And I think it's because it doesn't have as much of an agenda. Okay, well, let me explain this because you're like, wait, you have a hidden agenda? No, I don't have a hidden agenda, but I have a lot of strategy that goes into the content that we create for the Profit Podcast. I have my content calendar. I have guests that I've scheduled. Like there are very intentional things that happen behind the scenes for the Profit Podcast. Whereas, and I laugh because the body report is totally different. If you've ever heard it, you know that I'm literally scratching out ideas on a sheet of paper before I start recording them. And sometimes, like, because I batch them, I record them all back to back to back. And I just like the idea of it's not impulsive because I still am doing a little bit of planning, but I like the idea that it's not the same as what we always do here on the Profit Podcast, which is teaching, educating, having a guest expert come on and share their knowledge. So I thought today I would just do a great behind the scenes on the upcoming podcast movement because I'm freaking excited about it. Okay. Like I'm recording this. If you're listening to this in the future, then you're like, okay, like whatever, Crystal, but I am so fired up. So a few reasons why. This is my first podcast movement to attend. I was supposed to have gone last year. It was going to be so easy for me, y'all. It was going to be in Dallas and my parents live in Fort Worth. So I'd be able to take my kids and like they could hang out with my mom and dad while I go to this conference. And like it was just going to magically align, right? I wasn't going to have any travel expenses and have to do all these other things. But then, 2020 hashtag 2020 happened and it didn't end up working out. So this year it's actually happening in Nashville and it's going to happen next week. Like while I'm recording this at the end of July and it's happening the first week of August, 2021. I've never been to one before. I'm so excited because I've seen all the sizzle reels and all the amazing content that has happened in previous podcast movements. So I know like they go above and beyond. I participated earlier this year as a speaker at Podcast Movement University, and that was just so much fun. And the environment of Podcast Movement is just so inviting for all podcasters. All podcasters, just not just the ones that have millions of downloads and they're making all this money. Like they have such a good heart to help people that are just trying to figure it out. They're like, I don't even know if I really want to start a podcast. I don't know the name or the topic or anything like that. And so they have just a great foundation for a podcaster, no matter where you are in your journey. So I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So let's talk about what things are coming up for this podcast movement. And if you're not following me on Instagram, go follow me because you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to come back with so many stories and just all kinds of videos. I'm going to have tons of content whenever I come back from Podcast Movement. I'm taking my portable devices. I have my Tascam that has my XLR microphones. If you're like, Crystal, you're speaking this language, I don't know what it is. Basically, it's my handheld recorder where I can connect two microphones to it and I can literally just hold the recorder and me and another person, we can hold our mics to our mouth and we can talk and we can speak and we can record ourselves. So I'm going to be doing lots of interviews. I'm hoping to get some videos done, videos recorded. Y'all, there is just, I can't even help it. There is a lawn service across the street just got here. And I thought they were done. I was like, oh, I'm going to record this episode. They're going to be finished. They're not. So if you hear some weed eaters or some weird noises in the background, we're just going to go. We're going to go straight through because life happens and podcasting's got to go on, right? So let's talk about what's going on. So I'm going to be speaking on the Podcast Movement stage. Now, I have to take a deep breath because this is kind of like a pinch me moment. I can't believe I just said pinch. I normally say pinch, and my husband makes fun of me because he's like, you're from East Texas. Of course you would say pinch. And I'm like, I know, it's pinch, but I say pinch. I'm having a pinch me moment because I have had speak on a Podcast Movement stage, like on my vision board as something I've wanted to do ever since I decided to start teaching podcasting. And one thing that is just so amazing about this is I got to speak on the Podcast Movement University stage. Now I'm actually going to talk on the Podcast Movement physical stage. Oh, my mind is blown even saying it out loud. So I'm going to be speaking on day 1, which is August 3rd. This is a Tuesday. Y'all, it's a leaf blower. It's what it is. The guy, I can see him and I want to bang on my window and say, don't you know we're podcasting in here? Turn the leaf blower off, be done with it because we're podcasting. So if you have these struggles too, I'm just letting you know, this is legit how it is. And we're just gonna sit here for a second and I'm just gonna talk about something that's not as important while he finishes. And I hope that he's done. He's blowing the mulch. Why are you blowing their mulch around? Seriously, I see this cloud of dust and mulch and stuff is just flying everywhere all across. I'm looking at my neighbor's garage and I'm like, well, at least their cars aren't outside. Y'all, this has been the longest lawn tangent I've ever been on in my life, but I got my fingers crossed that he's finished. I think he's done. Nope, he's going again. He's going again. Okay, I'm just going to try to ignore it. Hopefully it's not too bad on your end. But speaking on day 1, I'm going to be talking, there's a 2-hour talk that I'm a part of. So it's not just me speaking for 2 hours. It is me along with 3 of my other Buzzsprout compadres. I'm really excited. So it's the Buzzsprout Podcast Primer. So if you're going to Podcast Movement, I want you to come to this because I'm going to be there. I want you to come say hi, come hang out with me. We can take a selfie, whatever, all the things. I am so excited because I'm going to be speaking with my friends about getting started with your podcast, laying the foundation. I'm particularly going to be speaking. So Albin is the head of marketing over at Buzzsprout. He's going to be talking first, kind of like an intro of what to expect. And then I'm going to dive straight into some of your podcast goals and formatting and coming up with the title of your episodes or not your episodes, your podcast, but really diving into the why of your podcast, because it's so important to understand this from the very beginning. I'm going to actually link to an episode I've done in the past. It's what are your goals for your podcast and what is your why? Because I think it's really important to understand that. But then I'm also going to be, so it's me and then Carrie Ann Reed Brown, which she has been on the podcast and we have talked I love that I've found my people and we can nerd out on all things podcasting because Carrie Ann is so much fun. Every time I talk to her, sometimes I'll feel like such a weirdo, someone that just gets so excited about podcasting. And then Carrie Ann and I start talking and I'm like, oh, you're my people. You are so we are on the same wavelength. We geek out about the same things. So she's going to be she's going to be talking about podcast editing and software and getting started with that. And then Jordan Blair, she has been on the show and she's going to be talking about publication and really getting behind the scenes in the production. And then Albin is going to be talking about getting, your show actually connected to all the podcast directories and using Buzzsprout and getting started that way. But I've had all 3 of these people on the podcast here. So I'm going to link to their individual episodes in the show notes if you want to go check those out. It's crystalprofit.com/episode 276. If you're like, Crystal, I can't go to Podcast Movement. Well, I encourage you to go listen to the episodes, the interviews that I've done with them because they all just have so much value to offer the podcast community. And I am so honored to share the stage with them. It's just going to be so much fun. So much fun. But that's just day 1. That's day 1. Technically, I think it's day 0 before the main keynotes start because it's the primer. It's to help anybody that is getting ready to start a podcast or is trying to figure out the basics. That's what this is for. And then the next day, everything really ramps up. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to talk to you about some of the other things that I'm excited about. And I actually have this schedule right here in front of me. And the one that I'm really looking forward to, it's called the Podcast Makeover. It's a 30-second challenge that's going to be like a panel. And it's going to be really fun because I love Bobby Bones. If you don't know who that is, he is of iHeartMedia. He runs iHeartCountry. But I know Bobby Bones as the DJ, that used to be on the radio whenever I lived in Central Texas. He was located in Austin and he ran, I'm trying to think of what the actual radio station was called, but he ran this radio station as the host, the main person to play the country music, but then he had like the talk show part of it and he Bobby Bones, and it's just so fun. You might know him from American Idol, but I just know him as the DJ I used to listen to whenever I lived and I worked in Central Texas. So fun, full circle moment. This Central Texas heart, that's where I went to college. I'm thrilled to get to see him. But then there's also Mark Cuban is going to be there. What? The Cubes? Are you kidding me? So I'm just going to total fangirl here. I love Mark Cuban. I have always been really inspired by his journey. I mean, I live in Texas, right? Go Mavs. We lived an hour and a half. My hometown's an hour and a half from Dallas. So I grew up always watching the Mavs. My corporate job was about a block and a half away from the American Airlines Center where the Mavericks play. And fangirl, Shark Tank, all the things. I love Mark Cuban and I cannot wait to hear him talk and share all the things that he's going to talk about. There's also another session that I'm interested in, and it's called How to Become a Podcasting Millionaire, or at least make some money from your show. And the reason why I'm interested in this one, it's actually from someone from Art19, which was just acquired by Amazon. I believe that's right. Yeah, it was Amazon. But I'm interested in this because they are starting to play a much bigger game in the podcasting space. And I'm curious to see what information they are sharing with podcasters. How can you, have a talk called How to Become a Podcasting Millionaire and not have a whole bunch of people attend, right? People are like, oh, I want to be a millionaire. So I'm interested to see it from the perspective of, well, what are they teaching? What are they actually talking about? So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm scanning down the tracks here. Y'all, there's so many. And now that I'm looking at them, because I haven't really looked at the schedule. I've known some of the speakers, but I'm looking at the schedule and I'm like, how am I going to choose? It sounds so dumb, but I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to choose? There's so many. And then I'm looking at She Podcast is going to have an awesome networking hour, like a happy hour. And then Stitcher has some things going on. Oh my gosh, y'all, this is just going to be so much fun. I'm really, really looking forward to it. But really, I'm most looking forward to meeting up with the people that I've only known virtually and actually getting to see Jordan and Carrie Ann and Albin, and we've never met in person. I've never met any of them in person. So this is going to be so much fun. These people that I've had multiple Zoom calls with, people I've done podcast interviews with, people I've gone back and forth. We have our own base camp set up, messaging board where we've talked about having this talk. And I'm so fired up to be surrounded by other people who are as enthusiastic about podcasting as I am. And it's just going to be so much fun. So you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to have so much content. My head is probably going to explode while I'm there. But good news for you, that just means I'm going to come back with more valuable information and hopefully ways to help you with your podcast journey. So I hope you enjoyed this episode today. That was a little bit different than what you're normally used to with me teaching and talking about hey, here's your strategy, here's how to do this. I just couldn't contain my excitement. I actually, while I'm recording this, I've got to figure out what I'm going to wear. This is the biggest thing I've been thinking about. I'm like, what am I supposed to wear on stage, right? What a dumb thing, of all the things to be worried about. But I'm serious. I'm like, what? Y'all, I've been wearing workout clothes and shorts and a tank top for the last year and a half. What are you supposed to wear in front of people? In front of actual people? This is something I'm going to figure out over the next few days, because it's like the dark cloud looming over my head. I'm like, I got rid of all of my like fancy clothes. I don't have anything fancy, which I'm not really a fancy person anyway. So whatever I decide on, I'm just going to be really honest. I'm probably going to go to Target. If I can't find anything at Target, I'm going to go to Kohl's. Like, watch out. Mama's going to go spend some money at Target and Kohl's. Like, she's going all out for y'all. But I just wanted to be really upfront and honest. I'm so excited. I'm a little nervous, but it's going to be so much fun. So for everything we talked about here today, or if you want to join us at Podcast Movement, I'm going to put a link in the show notes for you to see what's going on. Because if you cannot make it in person, there is a way for you to join virtually. And it's going to be awesome. Oh, it's going to be so awesome. I cannot wait. So show notes, crystalprofit.com/episode 276. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.